Lovely. Okay, so it's Tuesday, the 4th of February. Welcome to anyone who is catching up. This is our second session of Business Brilliant, so I'm really, really keen to hear how people got on over the last couple of weeks, or if you caught up on the recording. Niamh and Michelle are joining us for the first time live, so if you caught up on the recording and if you had any questions, please feel free to ask them here. Um, so there's a couple of things to get through, but before we start, I'd love just to give a really special welcome to Michelle and Niamh. And ladies, if maybe you'd like to give the group a little introduction, maybe we kind of did that in the first session, but maybe just a little bit about you and what your business is about, and maybe what you'd like to get from the course over the next little while. Not to put you on the spot. But Niamh, would you like to start maybe?
Hi everybody, how's it going?
Hey,
Um,
Niamh.
so yeah, I kind of wanted to join this. I'm a holistic therapist, okay, with a lot of different modalities, and I've been doing it the last 7 years, and it was mainly one-to-one treatments. So from reflexology, Reiki, holistic facials. So I started doing sound baths or sound healings last year, and last year I kind of branched out doing a few little workshops, kind of a more of a one-to-many modality. Or kind of I wanted to get into the teaching. So it was kind of for me building my confidence and kind of stretching myself as in right, I need another source of income and not just the one-to-ones. And yeah, from this I kind of probably need a bit of direction, probably a bit more structure. And I was listening back to the last week's one, and I was like, oh my God, I should have done this 7 years ago. But I think if anything like this, you always get something, no matter how long you're in business, you'll pick up something. So last week was brilliant. It was kind of gave me a little bit of a fire in my belly again to kind of just get back in and giving the business my 100% or 110%. So I'm feeling it now. So hopefully we'll get to know each other and bounce ideas and whatever, see what happens. Let the magic unfold.
Great. Thanks so much, Niamh, for sharing. That's fantastic. Thanks, Mel girl. And Michelle, if you'd like to share.
Hi everyone, my name is Michelle and I am a holistic therapist as well as me. And I'm based in Dublin. And yeah, I started my business back in March 2020. So I actually cannot believe that I'm coming up to year 5. That is crazy to me. I feel like the COVID years were just all a blur. So yeah, I kind of started my business in person, and then COVID switched that to very much online. And now I do a hybrid, working both with one-to-one, but I love doing the groups. So yeah, so really looking forward. I love being in group settings and learning from each other. And I really need a bit of a kick in the to just get a little bit more structure in place in my business. I'm very holistic and I like to kind of be guided by the divine and let it flow and all of that. But I think I need to start bringing a bit more kind of masculine energy and doing, and yeah, just getting stuff done. So I'm looking forward to being in a really powerful group. I can really feel the energy already. So thank you.
Great. Thanks so much for sharing, Michelle. That's fabulous. Okay, fantastic. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a little catch up over our last couple of weeks, see if there was anything different, if you felt you implemented anything from the first session all around the flow, the focus, and the free time, or any wins or any challenges. Like, the floor is open. I think it's a really important thing that we can catch up after the couple of weeks just to hear of the learnings, or someone might have tried something that really worked, and we can all share our thoughts and our wins as well. Anything that's going on for you basically over the last 2 weeks, a little synopsis. So we'll take some time to do that now. So would anybody like to start? Simply unmute, or I can pick someone if that's easier. But
I'll get the ball rolling if you like.
great, good woman. Thank
Um, my 2 weeks hasn't been very eventful. I had COVID and I had to take a whole week off work, so it was very bad. But I've implemented some little things, and I'm just noticing the big difference. Even just changing those focus and flow tasks, the difference it has made to my productivity is unbelievable, unbelievable. Um, and I'm kind of good at planning my calendar as it is, but it is down to the T, and I'm definitely busier on my busy days, but that's a good thing because I have 3 kind of long working days and it allows me a bit more freedom for the 4 days that I don't work too much because I have my son. So yeah, that's been a game changer already for me.
Great, brilliant. That's very exciting. Fantastic. And sorry to hear you had COVID as well, Diane. Jesus, but sure, look,
How
at least
embarrassing in 2025. Thank God.
well, I had some sort of yoga around Christmas time and it was 10 times worse than COVID, so there must be some other bloody strain of something going around, or I don't know what the heck.
It was the day we had our college. Remember, I was walking up to collect my son, and that afternoon I did a test and it was positive.
Oh
And
no.
then our first call that Tuesday, I was really sick that day, but I wasn't missing it.
Oh no, you poor thing.
That's
Great.
grand.
That's the reality of business owners, isn't it? Like you just have to try and grin and bear it and get on with it, but fair play. At least it's over you now for another while, so that's grand.
Yes.
Thanks, Diane. Natasha, you're next on my screen there. Would you like to give a little update?
That wasn't a choice. Oh, I've had an interesting week. I feel like I'm going very backwards in my business. And it's just been a very energetically strange start to the year. Again, I was really sick. It's my second year coming into business, I guess. And so I'm comparing to last year, where things just kind of started rolling nicely for me. And now I just feel like I'm rolling into a brick wall, which is hilarious. I don't know what to do. Like I found I jumped in and I got all my flow, focus, and free time tasks set out. And I found that really, really helpful. But it's so funny. I wrote out, I don't know if I expected too much of myself. So that's lessons to learn as well, because I didn't get everything I set out to do done. It just didn't happen. So I had to sit with that, and that's okay. Again, I started the structure this week, which was good for me. I feel that I really need to work on my business visibility and refine my offerings because I have so many things. And I know with some of the things like the one-to-one healings, I'm quite comfortable with what they are. I struggle how to word some of the things with them. So I had like a little flyer kind of on the go, but I just stopped because even coming from an art background, I felt like there was too much information. There's not enough information. So I might pop that into the chat during the week for any creatives to help me with some feedback on that, if that's okay. Yeah, it's been a strange week. Even this week, everything just feels very slow. So, but it's not a bad thing. I'm not worried. I feel like maybe I'm slowing down to go forward, if that makes sense, So yeah, maybe I shouldn't have changed my business name at the beginning of the year, but I don't know. So yeah, things are it's just as it is, but it's yeah.
Not to worry, and that's totally welcome too. This isn't like a wins only fucking group. Like that's the reality. Like everyone at a different stage will be doing great, going, not so great, and like that's what we're here for. Do you know what I mean? Like that's everything that I'll be teaching you week on week will hopefully help with that as well. And definitely do pop in your anything that any of you want to pop into the chat to get feedback from one another. Like you're potentially like each other's kind of mock like clients or potential clients. So like, use each other for that kind of thing. What you think of that? Is that too long? Is whatever. So thanks for sharing, Natasha.
Thank you.
Mary, would you like to share?
Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah, I think the things that I had, like I wasn't like set out, okay, now I'm going to implement the focus free and what was it? Focus free and flow time. I didn't like set out and was like, okay, I'm consciously doing that. But I think being exposed to those concepts that we covered in the first session, I think it kind of like focused me in the sense of like, okay, I can't be like it kind of gave me clarity about what was actually pushing the business forward and what was actually kind of like just me sitting on my laurels a little bit and procrastinating a little bit and like doing some of the scariest stuff that I knew would bring it forward another bit. So that was really good. That was kind of like my key takeaway, I think, from the last one, because I was able to fill out 1 or 2 grants that I had wanted to apply for. But that, again, I was just like, oh no, I can't be doing that. Like, I'll do it eventually. It's on the to-do list. But I was like, no, like I can't move forward without doing it. But I'd say they were kind of the biggest ones. And also, from the last session you had said about, I don't know if I even said it the last day, but about if you have a to-do list and getting it done in the morning, or like let's say at 2 o'clock, and actually being like, okay, I've done my to-do list now. I'm gonna go away and I'm gonna like have the afternoon off because I've done what I've set out to do. That kind of blew me away. And like I had a very busy like 2 weeks, I'd say, of just like nonstop work. And then like Monday, then I just like absolutely crashed. Like but I was okay with it. I wasn't feeling guilty about it. That I was like, okay, if I get around to doing a bit of work in the evening, that's fine. But I'm also going to sleep and I'm gonna nap and I'm gonna like just stay in bed and kind of, rot for the day and like get the energy back, So yeah, that they were kind of the big things for me, I think, over the last 2 weeks. Just
Great.
like from that,
Yeah, and Mary, you had some massive wins as well with exposure and awareness and in the
Yeah.
media and papers and the whole lot.
Yeah. No, it's go crack, go crack. Very surreal though as well. And like also, like I'd say like a lot of people like will relate, but like the fact that I am a creative person and like I do my work even if I wasn't getting paid for it or whatever, that it kind of felt like I was getting away with things. It just this feeling of like, oh my God, like I'm getting away with something like I don't know. It was a weird feeling, and I'd never like experienced it before. But yeah, no, really good now. Like, and I'm glad now, but like also very like surreal and like still kind of like, oh,
Oh, that's amazing. Congratulations. What's that phrase is like, making it is literally like, setting out a life for yourself and pulling it off kind of. I think that's what we're all kind of trying to do, is just pull off whatever we want for ourselves,
Oh
really,
yeah. Oh
so
yeah. Yeah. Flying by the seat of your pants like half the time, I think. Well, that's me anyway.
oh, that's amazing, Mary. We should be so proud. Like the Irish Independent, wasn't it? The weekend Irish Independent. Sure, that was huge exposure. So well done. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I'm kind of hoping, like, I haven't really seen like good exposure in the sense that like the name's getting out there and people now are like starting to follow me online, like good key people and stuff like that locally in Limerick. But like it hasn't like translated to sales or anything yet. So I'm very much like, okay, like pedal to the metal now, develop the products and like actually start having something to offer rather than just bespoke all the time,
Yeah, brilliant. Well done, Mary. That's fantastic. That'll take a little while as well for that kickback to kind of come, where the relationship building and people will know about you now, but over the next few weeks and months they'll get to know you and your work and stuff, and then you'll see a big kind of increase, hopefully. So that'll be great.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
No,
Thanks, Mary. That's great.
no.
Eleanor, you're next on my screen there.
Hi everybody, how are you? Great to hear about all your successes. I'm only in business a couple of months, so I'm very much at the start of my journey. So I've just been doing one, like it's going to be mainly one-to-one, but I have been mainly thinking for the past 2 weeks, which I'd started over Christmas anyway. As I did coaching with more people, I started to kind of realize the people I wanted to coach. And so I've been kind of working on, I think, what you call my offer or whatever. And so that's what I find it slow. Yeah. I'm trying to work out. Somebody mentioned having a business name, and I put it in the chat there. I spent a couple of days actually wondering, like, looking at different options for names for the business, but like it can be a rabbit hole you go down to, and then sometimes people just call themselves their own name and coaching, so so yeah, I'm still floundering a bit, yeah, and I'm thinking about I need a website, but then I have to work out what to put on the website, so it feels a bit overwhelming at the moment and a bit like the chicken and the egg, because once I need a website for people to find me, but I need to know what I'm putting on the website, so then I have to have that written. So I made a couple of good phone calls, which I got a really good response to, but then again, in order for them to be able to flag me to people, I have to have the website. So it becomes circular. Yeah. Anyway, enough to me.
A little bit on that, Eleanor. Just quickly, because it might be relevant to other people in the group as well, the whole like personal brand versus business name kind of a thing. I suppose it depends on a few different things, like the nature of the business that you're in, Eleanor, is very personable. So with your coaching, so they're very much buying into you and your experience and your knowledge. So for something like that, a personal brand works very well. It also kind of depends on the intention that you have with the business. So like if you decided that you wanted to just keep it yourself, it was going to be you and people are going to be working with you, personal brand is perfect, like Eleanor O'Sullivan Coaching or whatever. But if you had the intention of scaling it and getting other coaches involved and all the rest, then a business name can be good because it's not just solely you. Where people could work with other coaches and they get the same result, kind of a thing. I'm a fan of like anything intimate and anything like people buying into you, which they will be. I'm a fan of like a personal brand, like Eleanor O'Sullivan or EOS Coaching or something like that.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, people are going to be recommending you as Eleanor and referring to you as Eleanor. I know this lovely woman Eleanor, she's so good at what she does, she's a wealth of experience and knowledge. So for that reason, I'm a fan of a personal brand. But it's totally like if you had lots of different offerings, like for the girls, they're free for like lots of different holistic offerings and stuff. And if you felt you wanted to have like a community around that, you know what I mean? Then a business name is nice, you wanted to, whatever.
Thank you. Yeah.
Can I say something to you, Eleanor? From my experience, when I set up my business, I was just doing reflexology. So I had it down as reflexology by Niamh. And as I extended the different modalities, and I was like, I'm not just doing reflexology anymore, so I needed to change the name. So even coming up with your suggested name or whatever, like it's like, what am I going to call myself? So is there anything that keeps coming up for you that is like I don't know, like for me, I picked Radiance Healing with Niamh, and the radiance comes from my name, it means radiance. So that's what I got, Radiance. With Niamh, and because that kind of covers like my holistic facials and the healing elements with the reflexology or all the healing modalities, so that kind of give a broader range, if you know what I mean, rather than just reflexology. So there is a lot of thinking to it, but put it into ChatGPT. Any names or anything that resonates with you that you're like, oh, I like the sound of that, or I'd like to have that in a name. Put that into ChatGPT. Have you used that before?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
And even just like, can you create 5 names and kind of give your business what you do in as much description or specific details, and it'll generate certain ones, and you can play around with it then. But you might find something that way.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Niamh.
Great, yeah. And then Natasha has put in some advice there into the chat as well. So there's a little bit coming for you there, Eleanor. So
Thank you.
Ellen, would you like to share? You were sick as well, I think, were you?
I was. I'm better again. We moved. What were my 2 weeks like? They were very different. So like at points, I feel for the traffic light exercise was really resonating with me. So I'd say when we had our meeting 2 weeks ago, I felt very orange. And then at some point last week, I was green, flying it. Things are going amazing. And for some reason today, I was like, I am a big fat red. So like even just tuning into that and like making space for that. So I challenge myself that if I feel I'm getting stuck in a slump or that kind of thing, to just get up, go out for a walk, refresh, and come back in. And I usually feel really guilty about leaving between the hours of, whatever, 9 to 6. And I did it, didn't feel bad, came back. So like trying to small little challenges and to like break those cycles was interesting. For the focus and flow time, I always had quite a structure, but what it made me realize was I obviously was avoiding, it's kind of like what Mary's saying, like some of the things that were going to help me move forward, but I just really didn't want to do it. And I was like, nope, you're right, do it better in the morning. So just even shuffling that was an interesting thing. And what else did I do? Oh yeah, the main thing I had to do in the 2 weeks was I restructured all my packages to make them more simple, because before I was jamming loads in and I think it was just really confusing people. And when I made them at the time, I actually never really even marketed them online. I just sent them directly to leads, and it was just chunky and awkward. So I redid that and my welcome guide and kind of just worked on my systems rather than, I feel like I'm ready to like start marketing things again, but I'm also like, I want to go along with the course timelines. I'm kind of like figuring like, make sure I have the right clarity and that I'm doing it right and speaking to the right people. But so I'm kind of feeling a bit caught, if that makes sense. I'm kind of hopping from one to the other.
Yeah, great. And on that note, if there's anything that any of you feel like you want to kind of fast track, like what's coming to me from Natasha is the offer. We might do that sooner rather than later, because if you want to get clear on your offering, like we might bring that forward a bit. We kind of did that in the last group, and I've actually brought forward the your customer and your messaging to today, because just from chatting to you in the group and stuff, we were kind of going to, and the curriculum, it's a like goal setting and your vision or something, but I feel like this is kind of more immediate. So if any of you have any feedback, we're like, oh, I really want to do this, or like, can we do that next? Like totally, I'm totally open to shuffling things around as you need them. So Yeah, good stuff, Ellen. That's brilliant. And I was going to ask you another thing about that. Oh yes, speaking about your offering, your package, that's on your website now, isn't it? Because, or is it? Is it different options on your website?
I think my website's a joke, and like I do websites, so it's very
Well,
embarrassing.
it's
If
funny you said that because I was actually on a call with a one-to-one client and I happened to refer yourself and I was like, I'll just jump on our website, and I was like, actually, it's a really good example of like certain things that she was looking at. She was like, I need to be able to structure my website, and she took some inspo from your website basically, but it's not as bad as you think it is, I don't think, anyway. So
Oh, thanks. I think it's when it doesn't. I feel like it doesn't fully align. Like it shows all the things, but I don't have any of my packages anyway. There's like a bit where there's the names of them, but not what's involved. And I just don't think I have a clear, like if you came onto my website, had a look at my services, I think people get overwhelmed, and then you've got to fill the inquiry form. But the inquiry form is tailored to branding. You might be coming for social media help. Do you know? I just need to make the flow better, I think.
yeah,
That makes
okay,
sense.
yeah, and we
Um,
can again, we can do that at some stage if people wanted to jump on and be like, what's a good layout for a website, or what's the good kind of like flow or funnel or whatever. We could do all that if you
yeah,
want.
funnel.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, perfect.
Thank you.
No other. Okay, so we will truck on. So in that rate, one thing I wanted to check in with you actually is I'm really, really keen for us to have an in-person meetup sooner rather than later. So I would like to put it to you, would you prefer, like, who could make midweek? Like if I had something with some good notice, could you do midweek? Is that a possibility, or is it just like a Saturday? Or would midweek work?
And just for the personal meetup, sorry. Is that what you said?
For the meetup, yeah, in-person
Oh yeah.
meetup, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, during the week works for me.
yeah.
I could do it midweek as well.
Great.
I could do Wednesday.
Wednesday is exactly what I had in mind, Mary. You read my mind. Yeah,
I do Wednesday. I just teach on Wednesday evenings online, so depending on where it is, I'd just be back for that. That'll be all. But morning or early afternoon would be good on Wednesday.
perfect. Yeah, yeah.
I just
Yeah.
need to block out time because Wednesdays are when I see my in-person session. So if I have enough time to block that off, then that's perfect.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah, I just need enough notice to block a time off as well. So yeah, Wednesday could work. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, same.
Oh, sweet. Jeez, lads, you're so straightforward. Oh my God, this is brilliant. I was thinking of a
Or are
Wednesday.
we people pleasers?
Yeah. I hope not. I was thinking of a Wednesday. Normally what we do is kind of like, well, for anyone in Dublin, it's like actually very straightforward. The venue that I hold it in usually is the Dean in Cork, and it's right next to the train station. So people get the train down in the morning, like the first train from Dublin about 7 o'clock-ish, and they're down for like 9:30. We have like a little tea and coffee kind of catch up, and then we start work around 10 o'clock, and then we wrap up for about 3. So we can get home and on time, like, you know, for your evening and kids and dinner and all that kind of stuff. So I will try and slot in a Wednesday. When you say notice, are we talking about like a couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks notice kind of a thing? Or any of you, or Michelle, you can let me know if you have anyone booked in for whatever. So I'll pop into the chat and we can put in some dates maybe, yeah.
I'm okay with 2 weeks notice.
Okay, brilliant, Ella, that's helpful.
And
Yeah,
actually, I have to go in about 5 minutes. Apologies, I had something booked long before I
problem.
joined the course.
no
So
worries. You
I'll
can
catch the rest online.
yeah, you can catch the recording in there. Thanks for jumping on. Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's get cracking on tonight's topic then. So I'm going to share my screen and hopefully you have some kind of a notebook or notes, something like that you can take notes with, but all the slides and the recording will be on the platform. So, okay, tonight we're going to be talking all about your audience and your customer, essentially. I'm just going to pin myself here as well. Okay. Yeah. So your audience and your customer. So a really, really, really important topic, like one of the most kind of basic things to have right, I suppose. And hence why we're having on the second call, because I suppose if you have this right, an awful lot of stuff will start to fall into place. Like lots of things that you've mentioned there, like creating websites, the copy, you know, putting together your offering, what to post on social media, you know, to help with your own clarity in your own direction. So yeah, hence why we're doing this tonight. So we've had a little catch up. So what you can expect in this session is to understand the importance of knowing your ideal customer, literally inside out and back to front. Spend time learning how to identify, connect, and engage with your ideal clients. Write your ideal customer grid, and we're going to look at the reality, needs, wants, and barriers of your customers, basically. Be able to apply this grid to your offer, your social media messaging, emails, landing pages, even your sales calls or your discovery calls. So basically, this is going to be like your Bible. And I'll show you in just a sec, but I have my own ideal customer grid printed off in a journal, and I refer back to it again and again. I don't even know if I can find it here. I'll show you an example later, but whether it be for a product or a service, this is like really, really important. To understand authentic and natural messaging that resonates with your ideal customer, which I feel is important for all of us. Like, you don't want to come across super salesy or cringy or needy or whatever, but like that it's authentic and it actually resonates with people that you're wanting to attract. Selling the results and not the how, which we'll speak about later on. And troubleshooting, right, around your audience at the end. So if you have any questions around your audience or your ideal customer, your ideal person who's going to hand over money for, you know, what you do, we can go through that. Okay. So why is this even important? As I was saying, at the end of the day, knowing your customer and your audience is very, very important, because any time that someone sees something about you or you're speaking about what you do or whatever, you want them to kind of say like, that is me. That is exactly me. This is the person, like leaving no doubt in their mind that you are the person to go to for whatever they're looking for, essentially. And knowing your customer and their reality, their wants, their needs, and their barriers, which we'll be going through in a second, is basically like the formula for doing that, right? Or is the magic potion for doing that, right? So I want you to do a little reflection there for yourself, and I want you to think about, how well do you know your ideal customer? Can you accurately describe what their reality looks like? Do you know what they need? And does your offer provide that solution for them? So even to take in the first one, like, how well do you know your customer at the moment, from 1 to 10? 10 being like, I'm super clear, I know exactly who I want to work with, I know them inside out, back to front, I know exactly what they need, I know what they struggle with, and I have like the offering for them. And 1 being like the opposite end of the spectrum, being like, I'm super confused, I'm super lost, I don't know who I'm talking to or what I'm supposed to be doing, and I don't have anything to attract them. So just pop into the chat just so we can get a feel for where we are all at on the call. And then that'll kind of help me guide where we take this session, basically. So 5, 7, yeah. 7 out of 10, 4, yeah. 7, great. 5 maybe, yeah. Okay, I think we have them all in there. Okay, great. So that we kind of have a little bit of a mixed bag there, which is perfectly fine. So there is a very common situation that when you are new to business, right, or when you're starting off with a new business or a new offering, whatever, you try to be everything to everyone, right? You're trying to kind of like, come all ye, right? Like, it doesn't matter who it is, right? Like, I just need customers, I need money, and the more I can speak to, the more surely I'll take a stab at someone, right? That kind of like attitude, right? And I totally get where that's coming from. But this is usually down to having, as I said, a scarcity mindset, being afraid of being too specific so that you can't work with everyone. But you're not supposed to work with everybody. That's a really important point, right? You're not supposed to serve everybody, because everybody have lots of different realities. They've lots of different wants. They've lots of different needs. They've lots of different ideas as to what they would pay for something. Like, the same person who is going shopping in Pennies is not going to come to you, Mary, for a bespoke, you know, tailored, you know, outfit for an event or something like that. So if you were trying to sell to everybody's budget, well then, you know, you'd hit none of them, kind of a thing. So this whole idea of, if you're speaking to everyone, you're speaking to no one, right? If you're speaking to everyone, you're speaking to no one. So if you're speaking to, we'll just say, for example, the audience who are super unhealthy and they want to lose weight and they're really underconfident and they don't know how to train and they don't know how to eat and all the rest, compared to an Olympic athlete who you could equally help with their nutrition and their training and all the rest. Like, they're going to be in very different places. And if you're trying to speak to both of them, I don't think either of them would be like, Diana's exactly the person that I need to work with there. because she's not communicating that she totally understands where they're at, what they need, and that she has the solution for them, essentially. So I suppose the first thing to do in this case is like identifying your ideal client. Now, this can take like a little bit of time, right? So when you're starting off in your business, you might not know exactly who you want to work with. You might be feeling things out. You might say, look, I'm really open to working with different types of people on different types of things. And, you know, I'm happy just to feel my way around. And like when I get an idea as to who I love working with, or, you know, what kind of work I love doing, I might decide to do more of that. I might decide to dial it in or whatever. And that's totally, totally acceptable when you're starting off in your work, in your business. But maybe as you go down the track and you've worked with a few different types of people, or you love doing a particular style of work and you're like, oh, I'm really gifted at this, or, you know, I really love that, or I get great fulfillment from that. Maybe you want slightly more of that stuff, and knowing your ideal client then is important. Okay, so the little grid that I'm going to show you here is like your Bible, right? For your messaging, for your creating your offer, for absolutely everything. So I'm suggesting that you spend time on this, as it'll determine everything. Okay, and there's a template of this in the slides on the Google Classroom, so you can print it off and you can fill it in and stick it up in your office or on your computer screen or whatever, so that when you're writing posts or, you know, doing your landing page or coming up with an offer, whatever it is, that you can whip it out and just remind yourself of the person that you're speaking to, essentially. So in real life terms, this is my one. I haven't used it in a while now, but I basically did this and like it's something that you'll come back to again and again as well. That's an important thing to highlight. Like your customer might change over time, or your offering might change over time. And I know I certainly had to start from scratch basically with this when I changed the style of my business or the type of coaching that I was in, from my clients in IRE who were very much kind of health and well-being based and mindset based, to like, you know, the likes of yourselves who are business owners and have a totally different set of wants and needs and barriers and all the rest. So this is mine that I have typed out, and you can stick it in your office, whatever. I literally just use like a Microsoft Word or Pages or something, and I just type them all in, and I literally take it around with me in my journal or whatever, so like I have it kind of at the ready. So we're going to go through each one. We're going to go through each box. Now you might say, do you know what? I have two very completely different offerings. You know, I have one that is all around maybe coaching and kind of like the maybe the one-to-one style of coaching, and then I also do like healing, or I also do a different style, and that is completely fine. But maybe you would like to do slightly different grids for maybe slightly different offers, or if there are very different types of people, right? But if it's the same style of person and they still have the same reality, the same wants and the needs, but like the modality is just slightly different, you can absolutely still use the same grid, essentially. Are we all following along? Yeah, we're all good? Okay, perfect. So if we start off with someone's reality, this is basically you stepping into the shoes of your ideal client or your ideal customer. And you really want to get an understanding of them. And I'll go through the questions in just a second. But when you speak about them, right, and where they are now, you want them saying, oh my God, that is me. Like, that woman can literally sum me up or explain my situation better than I could myself, which probably a lot of you could do, because you've worked with so many of that type of client. Do you know that person who comes through the door and you're like, I know exactly what you need. I know exactly what you're going through, because maybe it was you previously a few years ago, or maybe you've worked with so many different types of clients, or something of that type of client, that you know them inside and back to front, that you can nearly read their mind and say exactly how they feel and maybe what's going on in their life or whatever. So a few questions to kind of, I suppose, unearth something in your customer. So like, how do they feel? Right? What would they say themselves? Or like, you know, what does their day look like? What are they unhappy about? What kind of support do they have around them maybe? What's their energy like? What is their home life like? You know, how does all of this affect them? What are they missing? What is holding them back? How is it having a negative impact on their life? For a product-based business, it could be like, you know, if their reality is like, you know, maybe they have like nothing to wear if they're going to an event, shall we say, or, you know, they have a very high status, or they're wanting to like progress you know, status wise or career wise or whatever, but they don't have like the look to match it, or they don't have the quality to match it. Maybe they have a very specific personal brand, but they feel like, you know, their look or what they're wearing isn't portraying that. So you can literally like apply it to any sort of product, service, offering, whatever. So when you jot all of those things in your little reality box, it should be a very, very clear description of the customer that you're wanting to work with and where they are right now as they stand in front of you without your intervention just yet. And the more details that you can get on that, the better. And like, it's really important that you use almost like their language, like what would they say? You know, are they going to say like, oh, well, I don't exactly know like all of my micronutrients? You know, they probably wouldn't say that, but they say like, I'm just kind of sick of eating shit, to be honest, and I feel terrible from it. Like that's the level that people are at. So yeah, what exactly would people say about where they're at and what they're feeling? And actually a good exercise to do there is when you're chatting to your potential customers, when you're chatting to customers, just be curious and start listening as to what they're saying. And you can even jot down some ideas in your notes, or if you have a notebook, like just write down some things that you're hearing from people and that they're saying. And that can be a little kind of a thing for you to go back to refer back to. Oh yeah, this person felt this way. You know, that's like how people are feeling even this time of year. Like what have been people saying all across January, you know? Just getting curious and like kind of hearing what the story or the rhetoric is. So that's their reality. And I'll show you how you can apply these in just a moment. The next one then are their wants. So this whole thing of like, if you were a magic genie and you could give this person anything that they wanted, what would they say? What would they wish for? Right? And a lot of the time it's probably the opposite of their reality. It's like they want to be in a different place. So how do they want to feel? How do they want their day to look? How do they want to show up personally and professionally? What kind of support do they want around them? What sort of energy? What sort of home life maybe? Their relationships, maybe their quality of life, their confidence. What sort of lifestyle do they want? What sort of mindset? How do they want to speak about themselves? What sort of mindset do they want? What sort of peace of mind do they want? What sort of progress do they want to see? What would make them happy? You know, if they're a business owner, Ellen, like specifically to yours, it could be like, you know, maybe they want to be known, maybe they want to have a website that they're confident of, like Eleanor was saying there, that when people land on it, that they know the right thing is there. So like, what exactly would they wish for? For you, Mary, it's probably being seen in a particular outfit or garment, or maybe like having the status of like, you know, they have something bespoke made for them. You know, like they want to be chatted about. Oh my God, her dress is unreal. Where'd she get it done? Oh my God, it's a bespoke piece. Maybe they want the kind of, you know, the kind of, I'm not going to say like ego piece to it, but maybe it is a certain amount of that where like people feel great in like having their own piece, you know, their own thing. So that's their wants. And then we move on to the needs. Okay, so what do they need to be able to achieve those things? So this is kind of almost like twofold, I suppose. What do they need to do themselves? And maybe what do they need from you? So what is needed basically to be able to help them move from their reality to their wants? So maybe they need education or understanding. Maybe they need support. Maybe they need accountability. Maybe they need someone who understands, maybe a clear plan. Some are particular facilities, some of the particular skill set, like for the service providers. Somewhere in a particular location, maybe to belong to a community. Maybe a clear plan, I said already. Someone to believe in them, maybe. You know, someone to be interested in what they're doing. They are just some of the things that people typically need when they want to achieve a particular outcome. And again, you will know specifically to your industry what people tend to need along the journey to be able to help them achieve that, basically. So again, you know, in as much as possible in their own language, if it's coming from what they need to do, or from a coaching perspective or from a service-based perspective, whatever you're in, things that you know they need to do. right? And maybe putting it in their own kind of simple, easy, digestible language that they will resonate with, I suppose. A lot of my clients were like, I really need to get my shit together previously, like, I need to like get out of the gutter, or like I just need to like cop myself on. That was another basic one. Whereas like, had I said some big highfalutin thing that they wouldn't relate to, it'd just go straight over their head. Like, they wouldn't relate to it. They wouldn't say, oh yeah, that's me, Okay. And finally, any objections or any barriers to them buying what you offer. Okay. So any reasons why someone wouldn't be your client, essentially, whether it actually be real or imagined. Sometimes people come up with reasons as to why they can't, and maybe it's actually not like entirely true. Things like making the time, maybe it's not a priority, affordability, they haven't found the right solution, maybe there's limiting beliefs around what you do, or from themselves even. Maybe they've had previous failed attempts, or maybe they've like really been stung by a person before, where they're like, fuck that, I did that before, I spent that money and they were the biggest disappointment, or like, it's not what I thought it was going to be. So they've kind of painted everything with the same brush. Maybe they're skeptical. Maybe there's a trust issue. Maybe they don't entirely trust and buy into what you're doing for the money that, that they're going to be investing into it. Maybe it's a whole new concept. Maybe you're, very unusual in your industry, and you're offering something very bespoke or very kind of new to people, right? Ireland can be a little bit, further ahead or further behind sometimes in concepts and what people are willing to like invest into or trust or whatever. Maybe there's a fear of failure, lack of confidence. Maybe they have a fear of spending money on themselves or their business, a fear of judgment from family or friends. All that kind of stuff plays into why people might not buy from you. And where the barriers and the objections come into, you have a thing called objection handling. So objection handling is basically where someone says something to you on a call, maybe, or there's a reason why they say that it's not for them, or it's not the right time, whatever, and you have a very respectful, very logical, I suppose, response to that, to help them, to be able to help them overcome that barrier or that objection. And it's not about being pushy, it's absolutely not about like being in it for yourself or anything, but the chances are someone is really, really needing what you have, right? But we're all human, and we all have a thing called self-sabotage, where we know that we would absolutely love something, or we know it'll be for our good, but there's a safety mechanism maybe, or there's like a kind of a confidence piece, and we self-sabotage our efforts, and it is our, I suppose, duty to be able to help that person, come across the line so they can get what they need from you, and they can succeed, and they can feel great, or whatever that is, in, you helping them, empower them, I suppose, to make the right decision for them. Okay, so I am absolutely not a fan of using objection like to handling to like force someone to buy something, or to make them feel bad, or to like dig in their pain points, or to like be nasty or mean. And I've been like, I've heard particular mentorships like recommending certain things, and I'm like, oh my God, like you can't say that, like, or particularly for a female market, you're like, if someone said that to me as a woman, I'd be so pissed off, or I'd be so insulted. Like, you have to remember our clients are very smart, educated, self-aware people a lot of the time. And if you're like, oh, well, if you don't do it now, we're never going to do it, like, that's not like a good enough like response, or like it's really insulting someone's intelligence, because, they know best. But if you can see from the person where they're like, obviously have a fear or a block or something around something, and you ask them maybe an insightful question or something for them to reflect on, where you could say, okay, no, look, no worries. I totally get that. Everyone has a different, time, and timing actually is important. So just to maybe for us to explore this, like when would be a better time then? Or what would be different about that than right now? And maybe if they go about that journey, they might say, oh yeah, actually, there isn't a better time, or like, and they'll come to that conclusion for themselves. But we can talk a little bit more about that in another little while. But you can use this objection handling in things like your social media posts, you know, what are the common objections that you're hearing, and being able to kind of handle them in your messaging. And if someone is thinking that way, it slowly kind of brings them around, or it slowly kind of sets the seed and gets them to change their mindset a little bit. You know, you might want to use it on your FAQs in your website. You know, common questions like, what if the time is not right for me? I'm afraid of making the wrong investment. You know, how do I know what's right for me? All that kind of stuff. And you can have answers to that. Or maybe it's on a discovery call or a sales call or something, where, you know, at the end when you say the price, whatever, and you're like, oh God, oh my God, like I hope, you know, and there's a question or there's a kind of an objection, that you can handle it calmly, you know, respectfully, but you go in with the intention of helping this person cross the line and trust you, so that you can make a really unbelievable impact on them or their business, or, you know, whatever they're doing. As opposed to like having them go off the call and you're like, oh, it's a pity, I could have really helped that person, and they probably won't reach out to anybody else now, or they probably won't do that for themselves, you know. So these are just the 4 areas, right, that if you do have a better insight, I suppose, into your ideal client, it is very, very powerful. As I said, you'll use it to provide value when it comes to talk about maybe topics, to show your knowledge and to show how experienced you are in a particular challenge or industry, or, you know, client challenge. Maybe if you're creating social media content, if you're creating your offer, you could use this grid and say, okay, what's the reality of the people that I want to work with? Okay, their wants is that. So what in my program or what in my services could help someone in that situation move into like that result or those wants, and what would I need to give them in my program or in my service? What would they need from me? And what would they need to be able to do for themselves as well? And are there any barriers or objections to someone buying into what I do? And how can I make them feel safe in their buying decision? How can I take away the risk? Right? And I offered all of you a love it or leave it policy when we spoke. So I was saying, look, if for any reason that I don't deliver on my promise, or it's like absolutely like a big disappointment, or it's not what you thought it was going to be, I'll hand you back all of your money. Because I'm that confident that like I do deliver on what I promise, or I'm genuine about my work, you know. But sometimes people are afraid of spending money. They're like, oh, you know, what if I don't use it? Or like, what if they let me down? And that's totally normal. So if there's any little way that you can remove the risk or make someone feel a little bit safer in, I suppose, taking a punt on yourself, that's also helpful as well. Okay. So that was a lot of information there, and I'm just very conscious of that. So what we might do is we might pause now here for a second. And if there are any questions, or if you want to give me an example of the client that you're thinking of in your mind and you're not too sure maybe what the wants or the needs could be, or the barriers, go for it. We'll have a little chat about it. Work away. Or you can pop any questions into the chat.
I have a question. If I was filling this out and I'm struggling, I feel like my client has changed, or my ideal client has changed, or is changing, but I have some kind of a fear or a block with that. So when I go to fill this out, I'm actually being what we're trying to not happen. Like, we don't want this to happen to our clients, but it's happening to me. So how would you work around that?
Okay, great. So what is it about your new type of client, Ellen, that scares you?
They're bigger, even though I know that I can do that and I can deliver on that. I am such a perfectionist that if there was any little place that would show me that I can't do it, I think I would crumble. So it's the fear of failure, even though I know that I wouldn't fail. So it's like the fear of even starting, for the fear that it might mess up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay, brilliant. And do you have any evidence that you would crumble, or that you'd mess up, or that you've really fucked up jobs before?
I have jobs that haven't gone well, but it's not, I know that it wasn't that I made the mistake. It's just we didn't, I don't know, this is going to sound bad. We didn't, there was getting people as far as the gate, and it's like, no, you need to come with me over the gate, and they just wouldn't come over the gate. So kind of, I guess, maybe objection handling, or deviating from what I know was a proven strategy, and they wouldn't come. And then obviously we didn't get to the end. So I know that that wasn't my fault, but equally, I always feel really, really bad if that happens to anybody.
Okay. And do you mean that when you are actually working with them, or when they're like a potential client and you're chatting about working together?
It'll be potential client, and I'm going to say, well, if you're going to, like, I get the instinct that maybe this isn't going to go well. I don't accept these people anymore, just hands up. But at the time, I was like, oh, I'm sure I can help them. I'm sure I can. And then it absolutely just ruined me because they were hoping to just hand things over and it would all get better. And then it's when someone tells me their dream and we don't even get close to the dream and I can't help them through that. I take that so personally. Like, I'd rather it go really, really well. So I guess that's not answering the question. Sorry, I'm going around the way. I have no
that's fine.
evidence that I wouldn't be able to do it with somebody bigger. I just fear that I would fail.
Okay, great. Okay. And what would be within your control, do you feel like, with that?
I guess mindset work.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, you could absolutely like work on your mindset. Like,
Mhm.
and if you think about like the fear of failure, right? I'm really glad this came up actually, because that is a real thing for anyone who is starting a business or like even changing niche. Like even when I moved from IRE, right, to having like really great business into this style of work, I was like, oh fuck, I hope I hope this actually works. Like I had no evidence, like just because I was good at one business doesn't mean like the other one was going to be equally as good. But I suppose I just kept coming back to my own, like looking for the evidence. That's a really powerful thing to be able to do for yourself. So we are not our thoughts, right? And there's a really good exercise that you can do, and it's called putting your thoughts on trial. Where if you get a thought in and you just catch it and you're like, okay, that's a kind of a bad thought, or that's a funny thought, or that's a really disempowering thought. I'm going to put it on trial here now for just a sec. And is it true? Like if you were in a courtroom and you're trying to find evidence for both sides.
Okay.
I'm afraid I'm gonna fuck this up, or I'm afraid that, like, if I work with bigger clients, that I'm gonna fail. Okay. Is there evidence for that? You could say, well, actually, a lot of the clients that I worked with, even the smaller ones, like I've always been very conscientious, very thorough. I have good communication. 90% of people that I worked with before were actually quite happy. But maybe there was this one time where it kind of went to the dogs and I dropped the ball, but I learned from that. I know exactly where I went wrong. So like it's a lesson learned for the next time.
Mhm.
And that's evidence of it being false. So there's no reason, it's an illogical thought, maybe. But equally, if there's so you look for the evidence basically. That's a
Okay.
very, very useful strategy or technique, Ellen, for
Mhm.
any disempowering thoughts that come in.
Okay, I'll give that a go because I think that's what's making this exercise difficult. I could do it with my previous type of client, but I'm trying to move forward, so that's what's hard.
Yeah. And the other thing is as well is if you feel like there are skill gaps, or there's a gap basically with right now with where you are and the types of clients that you're working with and where you would like to go with them, it's said about saying, okay, well, I'm really confident in these areas. I know there's no problem with my X, Y, and Z. These are all my strengths. Like I'm really good at this. And then if you write down the places where you're a little bit more underconfident, you're like, oh, well, I'm a little bit underconfident as to what that new client might need on the scale that they're operating on or whatever. And maybe just writing down the things that you're a little bit more underconfident in and ask, get the knowledge, get the information from me or from one of your colleagues or from somewhere else and like fill that gap if you can.
Okay.
And it'll give you
Gotcha.
a little bit more confidence around it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. And you know what as well? It's totally normal to shit your pants a little bit when you're like stretching, a little bit more, or like when you're working with a different client or when you have a new offering. Like, did I know Business Brilliance was going to work? Like, absolutely not. I was like, to Paul, I was like, God, I really hope someone signs up to this thing. Like, truly, but like we all have those doubts, you know what I mean? And like again, my track record to be like, no, there's no reason why people wouldn't want this. And like it was right. Like, there's always demand for it, which is great. But like we're only human at the end of the day, so
Yeah, that's true. That's also true, Neve. That's growth is in the discomfort.
yes, exactly. And you know what I keep going back to as well is what is the worst that can happen? Like if you do decide to go
Yeah,
after
that's
the
true.
client. Yeah, if you do decide to go after that client and you're like, look, I'm going to pursue this, whatever, like what's it like, I often think, look, if it's not going to kill me physically, if it's not going to be physical harm to myself, I'm kind of sound. Like I'm kind of,
Yeah.
Okay,
That's true. Thank you.
No bother. And we can chat. The magic is often outside of our comfort zone. Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, thanks guys, and thanks for letting me take up the time.
No problem. This is what it's there for. And look, we're like, there's a lot of you who have stretch goals on this call, right? Where you're wanting to grow or scale or work with a different person or charge a different price point. It is completely normal to be like, oh, I don't know if I can do this or what, But there's no harm in trying. And there will be people for, who you want to work with. And at the end of the day, if you have imposter syndrome around something, and if you're like, oh God, there's definitely someone out there better than me who does this thing, or whatever, don't overlook the small things, which actually aren't that small, like being sound, being a good listener, caring, having good communication, having, a true heart, and actually giving a shit about your clients. Like those things are so much more powerful and so much more important to your clients than any certificate or status or, how long you've been in business, whatever. Because there are people out there who have the certificates and who've been there for years and who have the celebrity status, whatever. And like maybe they're dickheads and maybe they don't care about their clients, right? Maybe they don't actually give a shit, and someone comes on a call with them and they don't feel great after the call, or they're like, oh God, like that person doesn't really care, I'm just a number or whatever. Like, I know I would prefer to work with the underdog who is caring, who's conscientious, who will give me their time, who will be there when I need them. And that is so much better than working with any, guru or, whatever. Of course, know your stuff, like, but, keep coming back to that. Like, if I am doing good by my clients, well, then I'm much, much further ahead than, my competition or the next person or whatever. So remembering that. Any other comments or questions on this little grid before we kind of explore how to use it, or?
Ashton, can I just say, like my ideal client did change over time, but more so since last year, branching out into the workshops. So I have like 3 or 4 ideal clients. So I'm kind of struggling with is, so I'll just give you an example. So like I have them all written down, little titles. So the hormonal wellness woman, the stressed and burnt out professional, and the natural beauty seeker. Now I could write more. I could probably write another 2, but my struggle is the content creation, because the age group would be between 35 and 55. And then it's like, what do I focus on this week? Do I focus on all of them, or do I pick one and focus that particular week, and then so on, and the following week, if you get me? So I get overwhelmed in that sense, right? Who's my client this week that I should need to reach out to or create the tips or videos or whatever. So yeah, that's why I'm kind of stuck there in that. But should I niche it down even further than what I have, or I don't know, but only probably because I have so many different modalities now. It's probably why I have so many, like.
Yeah, okay. So there's 2 things here, Niamh. The first thing you could ask yourself is, do any of these people have anything in common?
Yeah.
So we'll say the hormonal person, the hormonal woman, the stressed out, burnt out person, and the beauty wellness, or the health queen or whatever. So like, what do they have in common? They all want to be at their best.
Yeah.
Right? They all have different, reasons or different challenges, but they all want to be at their best. They probably want to feel better. They probably want to, do it in a holistic way, like your modalities are. So can you find anything in common? Like a lot of them would have maybe the same barriers or objections, like they don't have the time. Maybe, life demands, play a part in all of them. Maybe they're all mothers and they're very dedicated to their family and their kids, and they don't make time for themselves. So there's a certain amount that could be crossed over, which you can use in your grid. The other thing then is, it is hard to say, like, the things that a hormonal woman might experience and feel and need and aspire to might be different to someone who's on a well-being journey around other kind of motivations around like beauty or well-being or whatever. That can be a challenge, because again, there's kind of like a slightly mixed messaging, but if you try to find those commonalities and you show that you're able to kind of handle both, and you have a thing called social proof, like testimonials, videos, like, you know, reviews and stuff of being able to do both really well, well, then you can kind of, you know, speak to more than one, you know.
Yeah, it's probably just my the language I need to use and reaching their pain points. It's something I have to play around with, I think.
Yeah, or the other thing you could do is, if you will say, you could lean into one more than the other at different particular times of year. Say you're doing a program and an intake around, you know, for one of them. Maybe, you know, on a few weeks in the run up to that, you can kind of more focus on that audience for a little while. Or if you're filling a retreat, again, you know, what do these people have in common? Speak about the commonalities and how it'll, like, a retreat will definitely help the person who's burnt out and stressed, as well as the woman who needs time out or needs kind of education around her hormones or whatever. So, like, you know, you can kind of like push and pull as to who you're speaking to a little bit more at any one given time.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
No bother. Okay, so an example of this, right? I'm going to show you a real life example from one of my clients who did this out. So like, someone's reality of her clients was they were starting from scratch, they had poor lifestyle choices, stuck in a rut. They have a reason why. They have poor body image, they stressed too much, not enough time, poor boundaries, they're unhappy, tired, frumpy, clothes don't fit, emotional eating, poor eating habits, like all this kind of stuff, right? So negative, frazzled, talking themselves down, self-critical, overwhelmed, not prioritizing their own needs, right? So that's, they knew their reality very well. What were some of their wants? You can see some of them there, right? Some of their needs, like they need to carve out time for themselves, prioritize themselves, you know, a coach who is invested and who will support them, expertise, education, knowledge. So like, again, all of the needs that they might need to go from their reality to their wants. And then what are some of the barriers? So time, said around their food or their training or whatever, seeing the value in the investment or the process, that's a barrier. Prioritizing themselves. You know, it is hard if you get someone who hasn't done this all their life and they're like, will I be able to do it? Will I be able to give the time to it? Am I going to fail? Like, you know, this is an interesting one. They're jaded by too much choice, too much information. Maybe they actually don't know what they need, so they don't pick any of it. How can you help that person make the right decision? Maybe by really giving them an in-depth look into your program and exactly what you cover, and, you know, exactly what's involved. Like, I definitely know that I'd actually be interested to hear your feedback, but I definitely know that when I was putting out the information around this course, when I gave an insight into exactly what we'd be speaking about in the curriculum, people were like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I want. And like, that's great that you're covering that. So I'm happy to go ahead. Whereas if they didn't know and I was like, oh yeah, it's just a 12-week business course, like, how would you know what we're learning about, or how would you know if it was suitable? Do you know? So you kind of need to educate people a certain amount on what you're going to be doing with them. So there were some examples of, like, as I said, a fitness and wellbeing coach for older women, right? Again, this is another one from a product based confectionery business of one of my one-to-one clients. So she was targeting the South Asian community who are health conscious, who want to avoid sugar. Maybe they have events coming up that they want, you know, this kind of like product. It's a healthier version of a confectionery product, basically. They're like energy balls, raw food and stuff. She said people with money, right, calling a spade, that they want to spend money on this thing. They like something different or new. They like gifting things, maybe. They like snacking, grab and go. And there was a cultural element to it as well, where they were kind of like, it was a nod to the Indian culture, basically. What were their wants? Something that's a little bit a healthier alternative. Maybe they want something fancy, new, impressive, like the latest thing. There are people like that who, you know, are interested in that kind of thing and they just want the new, you know, whatever. They want it to be tasty, fulfill a craving. They want it to be delicious, easy and convenient, less guilty, preserve their health, not to be diabetic, peace of mind, responsibility or ownership over their health, and that they are caring about their health, basically. Then their needs, again, they have different needs, like product-based business. And then, you know, what are some of the obstacles, the barriers, right? Unknown brand was a big one. Lack of awareness, not being open-minded enough, loyalty to other brands, maybe, lack of familiarity, right? That takes time. Maybe sampling, like how are they going to taste it? How are they going to, like, you know, get to know if they like it? And maybe ingredients, right? So that was like a real life example of a business that's now like going very well. And she had like lots of customers over Diwali and Halloween and stuff. So like she's flying it, but we spent the time going through, okay, what were the needs? What were the barriers? How can we basically come up with solutions around those? And how can we cope with them? Okay. So any questions on those examples there, or anything that you kind of note, or like, you know, that you've are surprised about, or that you want to comment on? Anything?
Ash, I think I definitely don't explain what I do properly. And that's kind of a big barrier for me, because like people contact me because I used to work in a gym, and they contact me and they say, how much are your classes? And I'm like, it's not about the effing classes, you know, it's about the Zoom trainings I deliver. It's about the accountability and the support and the meetups and all that kind of jazz. So that's my biggest objection. But just something you said there, even though when I get on the calls, I explain it, you know, you have the check-ins and the accountability and this training and that. I think what you said there, if I kind of list out, you know, the way like you had in Business Brilliance, like we saw the content and stuff. So I think maybe that might be an idea for me, just to kind of get clear, I suppose, in my own head as well, but so people actually understand fully what is involved.
Great. Yeah. And there's nothing worse than someone coming on a call, you give them the price and you're like, oh my God, they totally think this is just for classes. Like, like
Yeah.
they don't fully understand the value or the transformation I'm going to take them on, you know? So yeah, that's a great idea, Diane. And I remember as well, like, and this could be helpful for some of you guys as well, where you kind of have pillars to your business. So anytime you used to speak about areas, like there's 4 pillars. There's movement, nutrition, mindset, and community. And I would always talk about my 4 pillars. And I'd be like, this is what we do with the movement. This is how I approach the nutrition. This is what we do in the mindset section. And this is about the community. And every single time I'd like rattle those off, to the point where on a discovery call, I'd be like, right, so, you know, what do you feel is right for you? And I really like your 4 pillars. I'm like, oh yes, the messaging has worked. Right. But they would kind of call back to me, like, you know, what was included. I was like, okay, they're getting it. Because I was always repeated on social media, on my stories. Like, I'd absolutely hammer home the 4 pillars so people could see what was involved, or, you know, what was valuable. So that could be something to consider. Or like, you know, your approach. I don't know if any of you remember, but I used to always say, like, you know, I'm not into like the restrictive diets, but I'm all about like a little bit of what you fancy. Like that used to be my tag. Like people used to always say, like, oh, I really like the way you like encourage like a little bit of what you fancy. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like really working. They're all brainwashed. So like, you know, people really understanding what you're about and what your ethos is. I suppose what your values are and what your approach is, you know, like what you stand for. So if you feel you can do that better, Diane, at this point, like you watch your inquiries start to come in and people begin to value and like understand the investment, everything so much better when they fully understand like exactly what's included and how you can change things for them.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I definitely need to get clearer on my messaging. I dip in and out of it, and I'm actually doing a training myself on values at the moment, so that'll be really good.
Great. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks a
Fantastic. And
million.
like, yeah, no worries. And maybe you want to refer to that kind of stuff on your stories. It's like, oh, I'm on a Zoom tonight now with my clients. Tonight we're talking about X. We're really going to explore, like, you know, just give people a little insight into the program, you know.
Okay.
Things like that like really helps sometimes. Anyone
Cool.
else want to comment or ask? Happy enough? Okay. So this was the second part of this then, is use language that connects with your ideal customer when speaking about their reality, their wants, or their barriers, whatever. What would they say in their own words? Okay, so even listening to like friends, family, on your discovery calls, application forms, what are people saying? What words are they saying? You know, or previously you, if you've had the same problem before yourself. You know, so if keywords are coming up, we'll say like you keep seeing that people are like really overwhelmed, or they don't know where to start, or, you know, they feel like an imposter, whatever like is coming up. If you're on a discovery call, or if you're writing copy for your website, and you can say, look, a lot of my clients, when they come to me, they feel like super overwhelmed, and, you know, they just don't know where to start. And someone hears that and they're like, oh my God, that's me. Fuck, I don't know where to start. I'm really overwhelmed. Okay, maybe this person understands me. Like maybe I'm at the right place, right? again, if you're to continue on your copy or your social media, like, but like they really, really want to make a change, but like sometimes they're afraid that, again, pick out a barrier, pick out an objection. Maybe they're afraid that like, they're not going to be able to change, or, they're stuck in their ways or whatever. And then again, the person's like, oh my God, that's exactly how I feel. Again, very relatable. Like I'm in the right place, I'm with the right person, or I'm in the right community even, right? Like that's how I feel. That's one of my fears, whatever. So the more you can message being like someone being like, oh my God, that's me. That is me. Yes, that's me. That's how I feel. That's where I want to go. Yes, that's right. Oh, I think that's what I need. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, I know what they have on offer, and I actually feel like confident to be able to reach out to this person right now and to make an inquiry. And people do need a certain amount of information as to what you do, because if they don't know, like they won't inquire. You know what I mean? If they don't know what you do, and people are a little bit funny in ways, and I can totally understand, but they're actually afraid to reach out in case that it's not the right choice, or in case like they don't follow through with it. So they really want to make sure before they put in like an application form or even send a message, because they don't want it to be the wrong thing, and they don't have to feel pressure to follow through with it or spend the money out if it's not right or whatever. So the more peace of mind that you can give someone, I suppose, better. So the third thing, I suppose, in your messaging then is write in a way that feels authentic to you. And that is so, so important. Don't overthink communicating with your audience. Like, how would you speak to them as if they were a friend? Literally, if your mother or your sister or friend was right in front of you and you were trying to explain your program, what would you say? Right? You do not need formal, businessy language. And even in fact, this can be like a disconnect if people are buying into your vibe and your personal brand. Because at the end of the day, people buy people. People are buying into you. And the more simple and straightforward that you can explain what you do and like what's involved in the process, the better. Because the more they can understand, the more they can say, oh yeah, I could probably, feel confident to interact with this person, or it seems very straightforward. I know exactly what I'm getting. But if it's too highfalutin and you're using all these big complicated words that they don't understand, or that is like a way, 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 way past like where they are right now, and it's way too down the line for them, there's going to be a disconnect and they won't feel confident reaching out. So literally whatever feels right for you, right? Like with your own language, your own messaging, and the words that you use as a person, right? Because at the end of the day, again, they're buying into you. So that's really, really important. Same with like your videos, like your, anything at all that you put out there, like really lean into what's authentic to you, because again, if you're authentic, you're going to be different to everybody else online and social media, and people are kind of copying each other or whatever, and taking the same kind of like marketing stuff and the same kind of approaches and stuff, like they all begin to blend into one, but it's actually kind of a bit of a turn off as well. You're like, oh, another one of them, or like, it's the people who are, I suppose, themselves. And well, I think when you are yourself as well, like when you can stand in your own confidence and you're like, yeah, like this is me, this is what I offer. As one of my other business friends says, they can rather sign up or fuck off, kind of a thing, like if they don't like what they see, like that's their problem, right? So it's kind of like almost like you're a role model. It's like attractive. It's kind of magnetic when you see someone like confident and they're totally themselves, especially in a personal development space, or if you're in a coaching space or a healing space, where you're the role model for them and being like, just really yourself. Or I know for a fact that I would much, much rather invest into someone who's really lovely. I'm like, oh, Ellen's such a nice girl. Like, she's amazing to work with. Like, she's super relatable. Like, she's down to earth. She's sound. Like, in comparison to someone who's like, I don't know, who's a big branding agency and they're kind of nameless and whatever. Like, I don't really care, about that person. So that's something to kind of think about as well. Okay. Creating feel-good content with your grid. This is a good one. This is a handy one. This is kind of like, I suppose, a template that you can use, right? So use your grid for inspiration. Take one main idea for your post, right? If you're doing your messaging, one main idea. And you should be able to sum up what you're saying to get across in a post-it note. Do you know those small, like pink or luminous yellow, like sticky notes? You should be able to sum up what you're trying to get across on that post-it note. Any more, it's too complicated, we've lost them, they've scrolled on, right? So this is an example of one, like, so tell the story or give value or whatever you're trying to do using some or all of your grid. That you can kind of mix and match. So we'll take, for example, if you're speaking about a common problem that one of your clients have, right? Identify the problem or the issue, use an opener for the topic. So you could say, look, one thing that a lot of my clients are struggling with right now is, or a thing that I see all the time this time of year is, maybe one thing that I used to really struggle with myself, you know, when I was younger was, whatever. So something out of that person's reality. Right? We'll just take, for example, Ellen, your business, say websites. We'll just take, for example. One thing that I always hear from business owners when they come to myself is how overwhelming it can be when they want to create a website, right? It's super overwhelming because they don't know where to start. Perfect. That's something out of your reality box. Now, a piece that I really feel makes a difference, and I just kind of did naturally, but I do feel like it really separates you from other people, is like empathize. Show that you have understanding, that someone's not alone, that you get it, and that you're not being preachy, like you're here to genuinely help. So you could say, look, if you're feeling this way, you're certainly not alone. In fact, I used to feel this way myself previously before, or whatever. Instantly relatable, takes the guard down. You know, you're not on your high horse or whatever. Or, you know, you could say, if you're feeling alone in this, you're certainly not alone. Like I work with many clients who feel this way. Oh, okay, this is kind of normalized. Okay, this person is like, you know, not putting me down and not making me feel shit. Okay, I'll read on then. Right? Because a lot of people dig massively into pain points in their marketing and stuff, and it just makes people feel crap, and they will just move on or get an awful feeling from reading your content, whatever. And people kind of feel into that, and they don't read your posts anymore, whatever. So then you can provide a bit of value, right? We'll just say, for example, if you have something that you can help them with, or that will show your expertise in this, or show that you know what you're on about. So maybe like provide a little tip. This is like the need section. So what do they need to do, or what do they need to do to move forward and move out of where they are to where they want to be? So it could be like, you know, one thing that really helps my clients is this. And say the thing. Or like one place you could start is that. Or, you know, 3 things that I actually used myself when I was in this situation was this. Okay. And then maybe paint a picture of how things could be. Maybe this is the once. Now this is just me pulling out of the grid. You know, this really helped me to move from a place of being like super overwhelmed and you know, people dreading being on my website to like, you know, confidently giving some of my website and then actually really looking forward to them having them on my website, or, you know, really excited to go into my inquiries every day from my website page because, you know, the website was more effective or whatever it was. So like paint the dream, paint the where they could be, and then empower them. So why they can get to where they want to be. So handle any objections or excuses. So they're your barriers, right? And you might say, oh God, like, you know, I really don't have time to be writing copy for my website, whatever, but like, you know, or what is the cost of doing my website? But I want you to think of what is the cost of not doing your website. You know, or look, I totally get its investment, but like my hopes for you would be that you will earn back the price of the website in your next 2 to 3 clients that you get from, you know, the traffic on your website or something like that. So handle any barriers or objections. And you can put a little call to action at the end if you want. Say, I hope this was helpful. Love, Ellen. Or, you know, I hope this was helpful. If you feel like you actually do need some support, I'm here to help. Happy to help. Or if you have any questions, just reach out. Very, very friendly, normal call to action, like, you know, whatever feels good for you. Okay, so that's like one little way that you can kind of, I suppose, use that is like the social media posts. And I'll actually show you an example. I actually have templates of like lots of different style of social media posts that you could use. And I'll drop that into the Google, or say the WhatsApp chat. It's on a Google Doc and you can edit them and you can use them yourselves or whatever, but you can take a little bit of inspo because sometimes it can be like, oh God, where do I start? The other one is like, using a landing page, on your grid. Again, you can look through these in your own time. Maybe this is irrelevant right now, but maybe like you'll be doing a landing page or a website, whatever. So in order to use the grid, you're going to have the person kind of qualify themselves in to your service from the start. So like, is this relevant for them? So like, for example, you have a bit of a general welcome page at the start and you could say, are you someone who is, again, the reality piece. Are you someone who's like super stressed out or, is feeling a little bit lost, whatever? Are you wanting to, feel a little bit more grounded, have a little bit more peace of mind, have a little bit more clarity as to like where you're going or whatever? Again, pluck out your reality and pluck out your wants. So if someone reads this first thing, are you someone who is, and their reality is there, they're like, oh yeah, that's me. Okay, I'm gonna keep reading because this is relevant. Are you wanting to? Oh yeah, like that's actually what I want. That's very relevant. Okay, yeah, this is starting to sound good. They're kind of saying like qualifying themselves in. Then you're in the right place. This is perfect for you, or then I can help, or whatever it is. Right? The needs, what they can expect, or details of your offer, right? What they need. And maybe a little bit of like testimonials or client case studies or social proof or something to kind of back up that you can do what they say that they need. And then maybe FAQs at the end, like what do people need to know to get over the line? Handle the barriers. So, for instance, a lot of the barriers for this course would have been like, what if I can't make all of the lives? How do I know what's right for me at the time? I'm worried about confidentiality in the group. Like I knew all of the barriers, so I just handled all of them on the landing page and you can go back in to see them if you want, but like I knew they were all not superficial, like they were very like I suppose true concerns of people, but I knew they were going to be no problem for people. So just like let them know, that like this is taken care of, that's all good, this is fine, this is not a reason for you to be able to, hold yourself back to getting support, I suppose. So that's another like really lovely way to do it as well. Okay, so I have a little challenge for you. Okay. The ideal client connection challenge. Right? Well, this is what we're going to do. I just pulled this whole thing out of my arse. It's not like any real challenge or anything, but like it's something for you to aim towards, basically, right? So using your grid or your Instagram, whatever your platform is, like Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever you choose to do, I want you to create 4 pieces of intentional content weekly. That should say for the month of January, or February, not October, obviously. But it can be an email, it can be like whatever. I just want you to sit down, make your grid, and to write really intentional stuff that connects with your clients and really kind of sings to them, really speaks to them. Because when this is done consistently, it will absolutely build trust and connection with your audience, which ultimately leads to more inquiries, sales, and revenue in your business. Okay, essentially what you're doing is, little touch points, like showing up, even if it's 3 pieces, just the continuity of it, I suppose, or the consistency of it. It's like, for example, if you had a friend, even a new friend, right? You have a brand new friend, you met them at the gym or whatever. And if you only saw them once every 8 weeks or once every 2 months, or like even once every 10 days, whatever, you wouldn't really get to know them. You wouldn't really know an awful lot about them. You wouldn't feel like safe and maybe telling them about yourself or making a personal little share or being vulnerable or whatever. But if you saw them very frequently, like maybe every second day or third day, whatever, and you were starting to build up a bit of relationship and you really got to know them a little bit better because you were seeing them a little bit more, you'd start to know more about them. You begin to trust them a little bit more. Maybe you might share a little vulnerable kind of share or like, tell them what's going on with you. It's the very, very same thing with your own clients. Okay. So that's why it's important, I suppose, to be able to do that. So it's just a little goal, a little aim. Again, it doesn't have to be all social media, it can be email, socials, whatever. But using that grid and creating 3 pieces of intentional content, if you can, weekly for February, and just so people, I suppose, learn a little bit more about what you do or your offer, or about yourself personally, or about the clients you've helped, what you're about, you know, just putting it out there and using your grid for inspiration as well. Any questions on that before we kind of come up with our action points? Any questions or comments or anything? Is it kind of making sense? You're like, oh my God, like this is really overwhelming. There's loads to do here, or like I'm kind of going to get a bit stuck with this, or happy enough?
I think we won't know until we try, so let's come back to that.
Yeah, yeah, great, yeah. Anyone feeling like, oh Lord, like I don't actually have any clarity as to like who I might want to work with, and like I don't even know where to start on this grid, or no, happy enough? Do you see, Michelle, how you might be able to use it on in your own business for the type of work that you do?
Felt like you're coming for me there.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I think for me, my messaging has always been, I'm not going to say struggle, but like that piece of like connecting the pain points, as you said. Like I always have such a fear of like, you know, focusing on the pain points. You know, what you were saying earlier really resonated. I was like, and that's probably the reason why I don't do it. But the way that you laid it out in such a way as like, well, actually, you're coming up with a solution rather than focusing on the problem. You know. So yeah, so I think that process, I'm gonna just sit down. I don't necessarily have a niche in terms of who I work with, but I feel like I know the kind of people that I work with, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's always been a thing of, do I niche down into a certain area or work with, you know, certain people? So yeah, I'll see. I feel like I might get a good bit of clarity, even just to try and get a little bit more clear around my messaging, because I think that's something I definitely struggle with. And like, you know, I feel sometimes I focus on just like personal shares rather than, I'm very conscious of like client shares, just client confidentiality and all of that. But yeah, if I can do it in such a way as like it's a little bit broader, so people think that's helpful.
Great, yeah. And like from confidentiality, you don't have to mention their name, or you know, you could really use it not to like air people's laundry or anything, but like as kind of maybe a hope or an inspiration for other people who might be kind of feeling the same way, or that there is help for that kind of challenge. Like if someone's really going through grief and you speak about, you know, a client that you had and they're really overwhelmed with grief, and you know, this is how the person was feeling and this is what you did and this is how they feel now. Well, they might say, crikey, like there's hope for me. Maybe Michelle could be able to bring me through that process as well. You know, if that worked for this person, hopefully Michelle will be able to help me, you know.
Yeah. No, I want to learn, like get better around that. So I think that's going to be really helpful. And just like, I did it like, you know, year one when you're first doing it, but it's the kind of thing again that I haven't given myself a chance to just sit down and do. I kind of intuitively put out whatever comes through, but I'm like, no, I need a little bit more structure now, you know, in terms of calling people in that I want to work with, you know.
Great. Yeah. Brilliant. I know it's 8 o'clock now, but do you have 2 more minutes? Like literally 2 minutes, I'll show you this document that I might send to you, and we can come back with action points. But this might be helpful for you. And I just kind of put this together just so you would have like a little bit of guidance around this. Oh, here we go. Okay. I'll just share my screen here. So I'll drop this into the chat, but it's basically kind of like a little social media template of different styles of posts. Like one's in education and value. You know, we'll just take, for example, this first one. It shows people that you know what you're talking about, you're smart and educated in the area, like you're a thought leader, like you have the solutions basically to people's problems. So I just broke it down like step by step, like pick a topic from your ideal customer grid and introduce the topic. And I just kind of like, popped in some things to get you started. Like something that I've been seeing come up in my work recently is, or once upon a time, I used to think that. Something that I'm hearing or seeing these days is, here are 5 ways you can, or like if you were someone who struggles with X, here is a word of advice. Like just introduce the topic. Again, empathize with the reader to show them that you want to help and understand how they feel. You're not being preachy or condescending. I think that's the piece, Michelle, that you were kind of worried about. So like, this is something I like to do as it builds trust and confidence, connection. Yeah, you want people to feel empowered and good after reading your posts, not feeling like crap, basically. So things like, if you're finding yourself in this solution, you're certainly not alone. Or maybe it's easy to fall into this mindset from time to time. All of us can find ourselves in this situation at some point or another. This is something that I used to struggle with and sometimes still do at times. Like all that kind of stuff is like very relatable. And step 3, give value or education. Like one thing you could try is, something that has really helped my own clients is, one thing I do myself every day to help with this is, so again, you're kind of bringing yourself down to people's level and you're like, I get it, girl. Like, I struggle with this too. I don't have it all figured out, but like this is what I do to be able to help myself on the straight and narrow, And you could put a little call to action at the end. Which one of these might you be able to try this week? Would love to hear your tips or, for X below in the comments, or save this post for when you need it. Or if you want to put a very direct call to action, like, wanting to work on this over the next few months, I'd love to help. Fill in the application form, depending on like how direct you want to be with it, or just simply sign off. I hope this has been helpful. Let's do it, gals, like with love, whatever, like that it kind of ties in with your authentic wording. I've just popped in some examples of how it looks in real life in my own kind of posts. And then you can have things like storytelling posts then, which is where you share your own kind of wisdom and experience. And again, this kind of step-by-step thing from your grid there. And then this client celebration post, a really nice way to kind of celebrate the client and show your good work without saying like, oh, I'm brilliant. Like, it's not all about like us, it's about the client and their wins and things. So there's just different types of posts broken down step by step, literally kind of done for you. So I can pop that into the chat if you want to use it. If you feel it'd be helpful. So I'll do that there and now. So might that be useful, do you reckon? Something like that? Yeah. Great. Okay, so as a parting word, I want you to all jot down some action points from today. Maybe something that I'll just pop this in here, social media template. Something that you want to be working on. Obviously, we have our like kind of 3 to 4 posts consistently, hopefully, for February. But something that you want to work on, or something that you kind of took note of today and you really kind of want to bring intentionality around it, or like, be mindful of it in your work over the next little while, so that you can commit to doing over the next 2 weeks. And yeah, we can kind of report back then in 2 weeks' time. So you can pop into the chat, or you can simply unmute, whichever you fancy. Natasha said, identifying my clients so that I can better build and develop my offerings. Yeah, great. And we might actually bring forward the offering one as well, Natasha, soon enough, so you can kind of get a start on that maybe. That would be a helpful one. I want to really visualize my ideal client clearly. And then when I know, that always keeps in my mind, yeah, when creating content. Yeah, absolutely. Intentional content and language to use to ideal clients. Yeah, I also challenge myself to show up online again, but feel good about it. Yeah, great, Helen. Brilliant. And like, if any of you are kind of like coming back online, or kind of feeling like you want to settle back into being seen or visible or whatever, like a really nice way to do that, to feel good about your content, is like just to help people, like helping people, putting useful stuff out there. What could be useful, like leave your agenda maybe for a little while around like, oh, if you don't feel like, oh, it's about me or my business or making sales or whatever, like just park that intention for a little while even, and just come on and be like, how can I make even one person's day a little bit easier? Or how can I like give a little bit of my value or wisdom just for free to help someone, like today on my stories or in my posts? Or how can I give someone a little bit of hope or inspiration with my own personal story, and to inspire someone before we even think about making sales? you know, and hopefully that makes socials feel like a little bit of a nicer place, or that you're doing good, you know, with your socials, whatever. Diane said, create my pillars and get clear on my values. Yeah, a message so it comes across on socials. Michelle said I was to use the ideal client template and use it to help me with my messaging and content. Brilliant. Fantastic. Any questions before we finish up? Anyone want to ask, even if it's not related to what we were speaking about, just general questions you want help with from the week, or clients or anything?
That was really good today, Aisling. Thanks again. Just nice things to focus on for the week, and yeah, just something to go with. So thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Oh, welcome. No bother, no hassle. And I know this one is very meaty, like there's a lot of kind of detail in it. And do you know what? It will absolutely take time to do this, but like if you do it once and you do it right, you'll have it done for hopefully a long time, and it'll make everything else easier. We're all about working smarter, not harder. So instead of bashing your head against a brick wall trying to make sales by not telling people what you do, or you know, not explaining, you know, what you're about, or not connecting with people, it's worth sitting down, having a coffee, spending even 2 or 3 hours if needs be, but getting it right, and then working smart so that things start to happen for you a little bit easier, and you're helping yourself, I suppose, you know. So
Yeah.
Ash, and just on that, with the content creation, that's brilliant help, especially with the templates will help me, you know, because that's where I always struggle. It was like, it could take me 2 hours to create one post, and you're like, oh my God, all the other stuff I could have got done. But is there any platform, not platform, for scheduling posts, or something that you'd recommend, like, or like, you know, like Trello or Asana or any of them? Would you recommend using any of them for like scheduling posts, or creating the content to ahead of time, as such, say if you for a month's worth of content or something?
yeah, so Instagram itself has a scheduling app or scheduling function. So
Yeah,
when you go into the post,
is that good? I have never used that one now, or else the business suite. I think that's the other one I
yeah,
use.
you can use Business Suite, or if you're actually in Instagram itself, when you go into like the options, or there's advanced, and you can go into schedule and you can just schedule your posts there. I like to write my posts, like I'm gonna, like, hands up now, I haven't sat down in a while. Like some people love to sit down and do like a month's worth of content. I personally don't do that, but
Yeah,
it
that
is a
would
good
suit me.
idea, like probably if you have the time. But Google Docs is a good place just to write posts into, because there's nothing worse when you've put stuff into Instagram and it crashes or something happens
Yeah.
and you start all over again. And also, if you have it in Google Docs, you can just kind of reuse posts at a different time. You can repost them, or you can put them to video. You can repurpose them. So if you want, you could go into Google Docs, have a document with all of your posts in there, or even your title ideas. Like I might get an idea from out for a walk, or you know, in the car, or whatever, and I'll pop them into my notes. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea for a post, and I'll just make a note of it. So when I sit down, then I can take out my title ideas. I can go into Google Docs, write them up, and then you can pop them into your Instagram and schedule them up. Um, some people like to work and just sit down and do one by one. Some people like to sit down and do them all together and schedule them. It's kind of personal preference, I feel, you know.
Yeah, that's cool. Great, thanks.
All good. Anything else there?
Sorry, Ashley, I was just thinking there around like visibility and I don't know, like confidence on camera. Do you have any tips and tricks in terms of, like, I'm great for an L photo and I'll write like till like big long posts and all of that, and I need to get better at like speaking into camera and all of that. Do you have any tips around that?
Yeah. So
Probably a very big question.
no, all good. So what are some of the things, I suppose, let's start with like some of the barriers, or some of the reasons why you wouldn't love to come on camera right now, or what are some of the thoughts that come into your head when you record stuff, or
Oh, you actually asked me.
yeah.
Yeah, I think I constantly and I retake things and I overthink it. I overthink it. So need to, I think it's just a confidence thing of like just doing it and like not worrying about putting it out there, you know.
Mhm. Okay. I think firstly, I think we're all definitely your own worst critics when it comes to that stuff. You know, if you watch back on bits and you're like, oh my God, like I've said that, I always say like okay, or you know, or like but people actually don't pick up on that stuff. They're there to like learn from you, particularly someone as knowledgeable and as wise and as valuable as yourself, Michelle. Like people are really going to care about like what you have to say and to learn from you and to get value from engaging in your content. Then like, oh, she said M loads times there, or you know, whatever. So we're definitely like the worst critics. If you felt like you wanted to bridge that gap a little bit, as Niamh said there, you could pre-record yourself and like chop things out on CapCut or something if you wanted to do that, but that's going to take a little bit of time, I suppose. But like as Dan said there, the more you do it as well, the easier it will get. So I always feel like, look, the more down to earth and the more like normal you can be, just yourself on stories, whatever, the more people actually connect with it, I feel as well. If you're very polished and very like, you know, it's very I suppose like there's a
It's obvious, you know,
very,
like
yeah, like there's a bit of a kind of disconnect, but you're right to be making mistakes all the time or, you know, going off track, whatever. And I feel like people just feel like it's almost like a little bit more of a real conversation, maybe. And again, it kind of builds the trust and builds the connection. So, and I suppose from a camera perspective, like I particularly don't mind as much now. I just show up whatever, but like some people find it really nice if they like get a blow dry, they'll like come on or do all of their content when they have like their hair or their makeup done or you know whatever. That kind of helps with the confidence sometimes as well.
I have
So
a
but
suggestion. I don't know if I can add. So Michelle, you're saying you find it really easy to like write it out. If it can get a bit stagnant, but for me, when I was finding it, like I have a message and I need to get it across, and I was good at putting it on paper, you can use the teleprompter app. So it comes up on your phone as you're recording. And it really helped me when I wasn't feeling the most confident in what I was saying, even though I knew I needed to get it out there, that I had kind of a script to follow, but like obviously try and say it as naturally as possible, that you're not just like reading from a screen. But it really helped me get over a barrier once, if you want to try that out. And it's a free app.
yeah, that's really good. I have that on the to-do list to do that. So yeah, I'll
Give it a
try.
go.
Really, really good ideas there. Thank you.
yeah, and the other thing that helps on a practical level is just keep your snaps short. Like if you're talking for a whole minute at the end, right at the end, you make a mistake, you're like, oh fuck, I have to start all over again, you know. Whereas if you keep them short, like 30 seconds, 20 seconds, like just keep tapping the thing and keep posting them, like it'll help a little bit with like, you know, at least if you keep them short, you don't have to do the whole thing again, you know, you can just post the bits as you go.
Yeah, it's funny, like years ago when I first started on Instagram, I used to do lives, like, and now I'm not even able to do a bloody 2-minute clip. But yeah, that's gonna be maybe that'll be one of my intentions for the next 2 weeks, is to do one video. And
Right.
yeah, thanks a million for the suggestions.
No problem. It is a bit weird sometimes when you take a break, like even when I come back from holidays, I'm like, oh my God, this feels so weird. Like, but once you do it like, you know, a few times again, you're back into the swing of it. You're like, oh, it's like, you know, it's like riding a bike. So great. So ladies, we'll leave it there for tonight, just because I'm conscious of the time. But I hope that was helpful. I would love you all to pop in. I know we didn't do the action points, but maybe pop in your action points into the WhatsApp chat, so we're clear on what everyone is working on for the next little while. You have a little bit of accountability. If anyone's doing the same, you can support one another or whatever. But like, please use the chat even during the week if there's any questions, or just like, how's everyone feeling today, or you know, there's a nice bit of support in your week, whatever, if you're down for that. But otherwise, I will see you in 2 weeks' time. And if there's anything in particular that you want to work on, I'll have a look at what kind of is next, what I had thought out on the plan. But I know the offer is one thing that you probably want to take a look at. That would be helpful. But if there's anything else, like, please feel free to suggest into the chat, and we can take a look at it. Is that all right? All good? Brilliant.
Perfect. Thanks, Aisling. That's class.
No
Thank
worries,
you.
Dan. Thanks a
Thank
million.
you.
Thank
See
you.
you all later, ladies. Thanks a million. Have a nice night there. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.